welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me today, and I hope that you're well and that you're comfortable. This is Tarot Talk on Green Ink Radio, an experience for the curious mind, and I'm your host, Mystic Cat. It's June 2020, and the particular troubled time I'll be referring to this episode is the ongoing situation in the U.S. at this time. And by ongoing, I mean on this land, North America, for like 400 years. So it's nothing new, but it has gained a great deal of attention lately. And by this situation, I mean violence against people of color, Black people in particular, the legally excused execution of unarmed Black men, women, and children is part of our nation's fabric. It was crucial to the development of the Americas and the U.S. So institutionally legitimated violence against Black people and all people of color is not new, but it has come to a new crisis point at this time and is likely to come up in many readings. I want you to know that I stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, and I condemn racism and bigotry in all of its forms, as does the collective of Green Ink Radio. I thought it would be a good idea to look at doing readings during times of trouble, like the times we're in now. Speaking of doing readings during times of trouble, there's a couple, two different ways we could understand it or interpret that. Is it troubled times for the world or nation or community in general? Or is it a personal, individual experience of troubled times? Troubled times in the larger context in the world or nation or community may have very little effect on any given person who wants a reading. This particular troubled time is, I think, widespread enough and far-reaching enough, and like I said, goes so far back that I think it's fair to say that very, very few of us remain completely unaffected by it, and also by the government quarantine and restrictions placed on us. So it can be pretty sure there's at least an underlying theme of struggle or difficulty for anyone you're doing a reading for. And that's related to whatever struggle or difficulty is taking place on a larger scale when it's this widespread, this far-reaching. The main thing people want at these times is to know what's going to happen next. What's going to happen to themselves and their loved ones. They may be seeking guidance or comfort or reassurance, and it's really important to be truthful about what comes up in the cards, while also not inducing or escalating panic or anxiety. To start with, I give all my clients background information on my card reading approach. I think that's really important at the outset. I think every reading I do and probably have ever done has an element of what has gone before, what happened in the past, because the past is the building blocks of the present. And then from the past, we got to where we are now, yes? And then based on that, where we are now, the cards will show me what's most likely to happen next. It's like a story or a narrative that I read for the client that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is what's already occurred. The middle is where we are now or where they are now. And the end is what's coming up. But that what's coming up is based not only on the past, but the present as well. So most likely to happen next is not set in stone. It's not fate. It's not doom. It's not destiny. When you see something in the cards, it's not like a full-on, this will happen no matter what. It's whatever's been set into motion by the client and those around them. So what's most likely to happen next is based on whatever has been set into motion by the person who wants a reading and those around them And then, given momentum and the passage of time and the continuation of current choices and behaviors by all involved, it will unfold much as the cards show, right? So if you get something started, it's likely to carry out to its conclusion unless you take action. We and the people around us, we always, always, always have the power to change our choices and behaviors in the now to affect the future. I like to make sure people understand this very clearly. I have had people that I've done readings for or not done readings for because they won't do it again because they had a bad experience with readers who told them they would die young or something horrible, like just terrible and awful was going to happen. I don't do readings like that because I know we have agency, we have power, we have free will. Even with astrology, we're looking at effects in astrology, effects of celestial bodies, but even there we get to choose. Like astrology gives us a heads up on what areas of life will be a focus in what types of ways. So for example, Capricorn is a focus on structures like governments or workplaces. And if it interacts with Mars, the type of way that focus is affected is the potential for strife or action in structures like governments or workplaces. So it's not this, oh my God, Harry Potter came to mind. Who was that centaur? Oh, I can't remember his name. Who said Mars is very bright tonight, and he just kept saying that, and it was like this destiny thing or this foretold thing. But that's not really how astrology works. We still get to choose how we respond to any strife or struggle we encounter. We still get to decide how we respond with our actions, our behaviors, our choices. And I do consider it my responsibility to make sure clients understand this right from the beginning. Another card reader responsibility is truthfulness. The truth can be framed in ways that won't evoke strong negative reactions or are less likely to. I can't say 100%, it's never going to happen. But it's part of a skill set for emotional intelligence and social intelligence. It's a skill that can be learned and developed, although some people do it naturally, but it's so important to be careful. Again, you don't want people running off and telling everyone card readings are the worst thing ever. They tell you bad things and they make bad things happen and never get a card reading. Tarot cards have a bad enough reputation as it is. Where I am in the US, it's a very Christian-based culture. And Christianity has, for a long time, sort of demonized divination. Let's not add to that bad reputation. Learn to use your social and emotional intelligence in your card readings. For example, don't blast people with bad outcomes. Don't be like, oh my God, this is happening. You're going to hate this. Or, oh no, so-and-so is going to die. I've never seen anybody's death in the cards. I'm sure that people have, and I do hope that they have a way of bringing that to the attention of the person they're reading for in a gentle and compassionate way. But really, don't just dump bad information on people. Explain the unfolding of events or circumstances. Help people see how it can take them to a difficult place or a place of struggle. Suggest some of the ways they can start to affect change now or start to adapt or cope with what is likely to be coming up. Explain that if things stay the same, that's where it's likely to lead. But they have choice, they have power, and also if it is part of their future path, then these are the ways in which they could most effectively deal with it. Remember, outcomes change. The cards, the stars, they can help us see how to either change an outcome or assure its fulfillment, but it can't absolutely predict the future. There's just too many variables, too many human factors. You can look at the cards surrounding the outcome for information about how they might change or keep what's happening. My favorite spread includes two positions that represent the client's unconscious behavior patterns. So it has a card for what they want and a card for what they resist. And with these cards, I can have a conversation about how to shift those patterns with their thoughts, behaviors, and choices. A lot of times, what we unconsciously want isn't really for our benefit. You might somehow fear success so much that you want failure, and you don't really consciously realize that. But a good card reader can help someone discover that and uncover the ways in which they do sort of self-sabotage. And a lot of times what we resist is what's actually good for us. So again, we can have a conversation. We can talk about ways that this resistance is either helping us or hurting us. For where we are right now, in this current time of extreme crisis, for doing a reading, consider choosing a significator card to represent the larger world or community or crisis that the client is involved in. So like right now, I'd choose the Tower. I'd put it in a reading up front, I'd pick it out of the deck and put it in the reading and say, okay, this is the present circumstances, just so we all know this is at the center of everything that's going on. This is what it symbolizes. We understand that the rest of the reading is likely going to relate to this in some way. Or you could also be like, choose it consciously, but don't take it out of the deck and just say, when it does come up, oh, okay, this is the card for the larger situation. It's not necessarily something personal. It's what's ongoing in the larger context. And this card just refers to that and how it's affecting you personally, or that it's affecting you personally. You could also consider using only major arcana cards. Major arcana deal with major events, which seems pretty appropriate at this time. Those are my thoughts on doing readings during troubled times. It's not a comprehensive overview. It's pretty much a sort of starter kit. There's a lot more that I could share about helping the client on an individual level, but I really wanted to do a sort of big picture overview today and just sort of a starter kit for doing readings during troubled times. I'd love to hear about any of the techniques or strategies you use for doing readings during troubled times. I'd be really interested in adding to my toolkit for doing readings. That would be great. If you want to add that to the comment section, I'd love to hear from you. Right now, it's reading time. So I'm going to do a couple of things that I suggested. I'm going to put the Tower right in the middle. Right there in the middle. And I'm using only major arcana. So we'll see how that goes, because it should be interesting to see what comes up. Today I'm using the Tarot de Sainte Croix. It is an indie deck created by Lisa de Sainte Croix. And it's really gorgeous and wonderful. And the Tower really, to me, speaks to this particular troubled time we're in. So I'm going to do a little shuffling of the major arcana. I'm going to lay 3 cards on the left and 3 on the right. The 3 on the left will be what has come before. The Tower in the middle is what's happening now. The 3 on the right will be what's coming up next. Like I said, it's all major arcana. If you're listening, this reading is for you. Really, I consider it to be for all of us at this time. And take from it what you can in order to move forward, move ahead into a brighter future. Okay. Wow. Ooh. All right, so I just did this whole thing of being like, don't blast people with bad news and be, gentle and compassionate. And now I'm just like, ooh, so don't do that. That was my bad. Okay. The 3 cards on the left. The first one I got is Temperance. The Temperance card speaks of bringing things into balance. In this particular deck, there is an angel who I always think of alchemy when I look at this. Well, no, it's a person with sort of an angel figure behind them, and they've got 2 cups that they're pouring together into a large basin that's on fire. To me, it reminds me a lot of the alchemical process. I think of alchemy, I think of sort of opposites come together. I'm really drawn to the fire, so it's very much fiery blending, but it is seeking balance. It is seeking resolution through balance, through bringing these opposing forces together in the same sort of melting pot, I guess, because it's on fire. And this is what has come before. There have been people who are seeking redress, seeking balance, fairness, looking for the resolution. I want to say, let's clean this up. Let's use our alchemy to transform this whole situation, this whole nation, to transform it into something new and different. Although it does look like a trial by fire, I think that it can really help us clean up our mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual selves as individuals and as a whole. I think that's what's being sought. That was what has been being sought. That's an awkward sentence, but I think you know what I mean. The next card is Justice. Isn't that interesting? So, Justice again speaks of balance and fairness. It also is a very sort of karmic card. And by karmic, I mean payback. Whatever we personally and we as a collective, as a nation, have been putting out there is coming back to us. So if we've been putting out or behaving and choosing in ways that are positive and uplifting, that's what we get back. If it has been negative and downbringing, then that's what we get back. And this is a time that is very active, or the time leading up to this tower, because like I said, this is the past stuff. What is that? The chickens have come home to roost, which is a really old saying, but it basically means, well, you are reaping what you sowed, which again is another old saying. These are all farmer sayings. Okay, your actions and choices, behaviors, thought patterns, they are coming back home to you, coming back home to us as a collective. And we are seeing that very much play out on a national scale at this time. The next card is the Wheel of Fortune. This shows a turning point. This shows a 180 turning point, where something that was going in one direction veers off and suddenly goes in the whole opposite direction. So it was all business as usual, wasn't it? Things were just going along the way they went along. And then we had quarantine for, a couple months? And not all of us experienced that quarantine in the same way. Many of us still went to work at our regular schedule or maybe a reduced schedule. Many of us really had no long break of time where we didn't know what to do with ourselves because we were bored. Many of us still had very intense schedules, or maybe our schedules were even more intensified. But overall, there was a shutdown of life as usual, life as we knew it, and people were very confined and restricted. And I think in many places, in like Chicago, LA, Minneapolis, this has done a 180. And what we're seeing like on the news and social media is people unconfined, their voices unconfined and unrestricted, speaking out and acting with agency and empowerment. Obviously, I'm not speaking about the violence that occurs at some protests. So all of this alchemical mixture, this seeking of fairness and balance, this energy or actions that we've been, putting out in the world, coming back to us, and then everything's doing a 180. All of that has led us to the tower where we are now, where our structures are crumbling, and it's like a bolt of lightning out of, for some people, a clear sky. For others, there were always lightning strikes every day, everywhere. But it has become very much more publicized, very much more in the collective awareness at this time. There's a general sense of doom and foreboding. This is transformation. Transformation shakes things up. Transformation is not an easy path. And if you go back to my January reading, Saturn-Pluto Showdown 2020, I talked about this overall Saturn-Pluto energy that is transformational. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you might get more details about basically what's going on now and what this whole year really is about. But this time is very much one of transformation, one of change, one of shaking the foundations upon which our lives are built. And we knew that, right? I haven't told you anything new, I don't think. So what's coming up? The first thing I have is the Empress. The Empress as a future card. So what I'm seeing is that it's time, and I'm thinking about bringing things into balance, and I'm thinking about the Justice card. I'm thinking about Wheel of Fortune, and I'm thinking, when I look at the Empress, which is the card of the feminine archetype, the nurturing, compassionate, caring, protective, mother bear type energy coming in for us. And I see that as a sort of 180, because up to this point, Western culture has been very much masculine. Western culture has been very much masculine archetype dominated, and in kind of an extreme form of masculinity that takes like core positive attributes of the archetype to an extreme. And, all feminine isn't good either. We want like that balance, that alchemy blend of the best of both. So I think the Empress brings in this element of the feminine archetype: compassion, nurturing, caring, protection, especially protecting those who are vulnerable, those who are at risk or disadvantaged. I really like this. I really do hope we see the Empress energy coming in for us. The next card is the Star. In this deck, the star is very interesting. There's like stars in the sky that sort of form a very protective body over this land underneath. And in this case, it feels like an extension of the Empress, of this protective energy. So the star brings us to where we are at our best and brightest. The star gives us a chance to shine. So I think in the upcoming days, weeks, and months, we all have a chance to shine. We all have a chance to bring forward our best selves, our brightest selves, to show compassion for ourselves and for others, and to bring seemingly opposite elements together. I feel like the star is really giving us a chance for renewal after the Tower. The last card is the Devil. And when I was thinking about what card I would choose for the representation of this crisis time, I did consider the Devil, especially since many times, or at least cards I've seen, they show people shackled in this card. But I chose a Tower instead because of the crumbling foundations. So it's interesting that the Devil came up anyway. The devil card is our own self-undoing, our ways of sabotaging ourselves or opening ourselves to exploitation or being taken advantage of, or, enslavement in some way, enslavement of our mind, of our spirit, of our bodies. Here it's reversed, and I want to suggest that it could mean a liberation from this self-sabotage that we have as a nation, as individuals, because anytime we try to hold down another person or another group, we're really limiting ourselves and all of humanity as a whole. Everybody has something unique and special to offer. And when we try to squash anybody from offering what they have in the fullness of their best self, of who they can be, we've limited the entire population, because we don't get to have the gift of what they have to offer. I think the devil card can indicate that we're very dependent on these dysfunctional stories and the need for change in that we need to face our inner demons and, our shadow selves, both individually and collectively. I see this especially collectively when I think about the historically embedded institutionalized racism in the U.S. It's, I would say, our inner demon that we need to deal with, both personally and collectively. It's really important to be aware of the ways in which we uphold, support, and perpetuate this system. So when I look at this, I see that in the upcoming days, weeks, and months, there is great potential for us to really rise as people, but that, we can't vanquish this devil overnight. It's been 150 years since the end of the Civil War, and we still haven't vanquished it. I think we make progress, we take steps, and then sometimes we falter or stagnate or go backwards. And I think at this time we're taking steps. We're at least raising many people's awareness and consciousness about this devil that haunts our past, our present, and hopefully not our future. So no easy answers, I have to say, when it ends with the devil, but I do think that there's a clear way for us to move forward, and that is through the Empress. Yes, with compassion and caring, with love and nurturing, and a sense of protection for those who have struggles and challenges that we either share or don't, but always knowing that together we're stronger, together we're more brilliant, and we're all under the same stars. And we have a chance to take huge steps forward at this time to dismantle dysfunctional stories and structures. That's what the devil is doing here. It's bringing them to the forefront. It's helping us notice them. And the Empress and the Star are here to say, use compassion, caring, nurturing, brightness, that we can use the feminine to uplift, to bring us all to a place where we can shine at our brightest. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me today, whenever and wherever you are. You can find Tarot Talk and other great shows on greeninkradio.com. We're also on iTunes. We're at Spreaker.com. Please follow us on Spreaker. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. This is Tarot Talk with Mystic Cat on Green Ink Radio, wishing you a glorious day.
Green Ink Radio is sponsored by Green Ink Marketing Communications, a full-service agency. They bring your stories to life. Find them at greenink.us.com.